All right, so we have our contact state, we have our provider. So basically from any component we want now, we can access the state and any actions, which we don't have any actions yet, but we will be adding them as we move along. So let's create inside components. Let's create a folder here called contacts, and basically anything to do with contacts that's going to go in here. So I'm going to create a file called contacts, uppercase C. Oops, I'm not sure what happened there. So in contacts, we'll create a file, contacts.js. And then I'm also going to create a file called ContactItem.js because I want each individual contact in the list to have its own component. And I think that's did I spell that right? Should be contact uppercase I item.js. So what I want to do is pull in the contacts from the state into the contacts component, and then we'll loop through them or map through them, create a list, and output a contact item for each one. So we want to start off in contacts.js. Let me just close the rest of this stuff up for now. So let's generate a functional component, and we need to bring in a couple things here. So we need to bring in the contact context. So let's say import uppercase C, contact context. We're going to go up 2 levels, and we want contact context. Okay. Now we also want to bring in the use context hook from React, and I'm also going to bring in fragment. Okay, so we want to bring in both of those. Now we need to initialize our context. So we'll say const contact lowercase c contact context, and set that to the use context hook, and we want to pass in uppercase C contact context that we brought in. So now we'll have access to any state or methods or actions, I should say, associated with this context. Now all we have in there now, if we look at our contact state, is this array called contacts. So we can access that now from our component. And what I'm going to do is just pull it out with destructuring. So we'll pull that from contact context, and then in the return, let's use a fragment, and inside the fragment we'll have an expression, and let's say we'll take the contacts array and map through. For each one we'll call it contact, and for now let's just output an h3 with the contact dot name. All right, so I'm going to save that. Now we need to embed this somewhere, and where we want to do that is on our home page, right? So we have our components pages home.js, and this is where we want to bring this in and use it. So let's say import contacts from, we want to go up 1 level into contacts and then contacts, and we'll go ahead. We're actually going to use a grid here. We're going to have half the page is going to be the form and half will be the list of contacts. So in the CSS file, I have a class of grid2, which just basically is just a 2-column grid. And let's see, we'll get rid of this h1 here, and we're going to have 2 divs. This one is going to be the form, so I'm just going to put a comment and say this will be the contact form. And then this div is going to have our contacts component. It's also going to have the filter component, which we're going to work on later. But for now, we should be able to at least see our contacts. So let's go back, and there they are. All right, now obviously I don't want to just display in whatever we put in H3. I want to have a component for each one of these, the contact item component. So let's jump into that contact item. And in here, let's do RACF. And it's going to take in, we're going to pass in the contact itself. as a prop. Okay, and let's see. There's a bunch of stuff we're going to need to do, like we're going to have a delete button, so we're going to need to bring in the context in order to call the delete. We're going to have some other methods as well, but for now we don't need to bring in the context, just to display the contact. So I'm going to go into the return, and we're going to style this using some classes. So let's give this main div here a class name of, let's see, let's do card, and let's do BG, so background light, and then within there we're going to do an H3 with the class of text dash primary, and also a class of text dash left, and this is going to be the name. So what we can do here is destructure. I could do it up here, but I'm just going to go right here and take out what we need. So let's do name. Actually, we're going to need the ID as well. So we'll do ID, name, email, phone, and type. We're going to pull that out of the contact prop that's passed in. And then down here, we can just simply say name. All right, now I want to have basically a badge. If you've ever used the Bootstrap framework, there's a badge UI class. And I want that to say whether it's a professional type or personal, because remember, it can be professional or personal. So after this name here, I'm just going to put a space. I'm just going to do a little hack here and put a space. And then I'm going to put a span with the class. Actually, the span here is going to have, it's going to be dynamic. Emmett's not working. There we go. So it's going to be dynamic. It's going to have a class name. And this class name, I want to have the class of badge, and then the class of either badge success or badge primary, which will just have to be different colors. And I want that dependent on the type. So we do want badge no matter what. So let's put that in here. And then let's go ahead and just add, let's concatenate here in parentheses. And then we can use a ternary to see if it's a professional type. So let's take the type and say if it's equal to professional, if it's equal to professional, then we want the class of badge dash success, or else we want the class of badge dash primary. Okay, so one's green, one's blue. Now as far as what we have in here, I want the type. So for now, I'm just going to say type like that. Okay, now let's just save this as is. Prettier, we'll fix it up a little bit. And then let's bring it into ContactJS. So I'm going to go right here and bring in ContactItem. And then let's go down here where we have our map. And instead of outputting an H3, let's output the contact item. So I'm just going to get rid of that and do contact item. And we need to pass in that specific contact as a prop. Like that. Okay, and also a key. So we'll say key equals, and let's do contact.id. So let's see what that looks like. And there we go. And you can see that we're getting the different color based on if it's professional or personal. Now, I want the first letter to be uppercase, not in the database, not in the actual value, but in the UI. So to do that, we can just use a little regular JavaScript. So let's jump back in here. And let's see, we're going to go where we have just the type. And the way that we can do this is basically take the first character and make it into uppercase. because we have a method called toUppercase, but if I just call that on type, it's going to make it all uppercase. So I'm going to say type dot, and I'm going to use the char at. So basically select a specific character. I want the first one, so 0, and then I'm going to say toUppercase to make that uppercase. Now if I just do that and I go back, you can see it's only going to give us the first letter. So basically we need to take the rest of it and add on to it, and we can do that by using slice. So I'm just going to do a plus and then type dot slice starting at the first position, so it'll leave off the first character because we already have that here. And if we go back, now we have the first letter uppercase. Okay, so let's move on to adding the rest of the content. We want their email, their phone number, and then there's going to be a couple buttons as well. So, and one thing I want to do is move that badge over to the right, so I'm simply going to add in a style here, which we need double curly braces for, and let's float that to the right, which we actually need quotes. Okay, and then we're going to go underneath the H3, and we're going to have a UL. I'm going to give it a class of list, and then I want the email and the phone, but remember these aren't required fields, so we need to check for them first. So we're going to say if email, and we're going to use the double ampersand. So we're basically saying if there's an email, then let's output an LI, and inside the LI I'm going to put an icon with FAS and FA dash envelope dash open as an icon, and then next to that we can just put the email, and we'll do the same with the phone. So I'm going to grab let's see, this whole thing here, and let's go right below it and just change this to phone, and for the icon it's going to be FA dash phone, and then we're going to change this to phone. So let's check that out. Okay, good. And the last thing we want to do, we want to have some buttons. They're not going to be functional just yet, but we might as well add them. So under the UL, let's put a paragraph, and let's add a button, and I'm going to give this a class of btn dash dark, and then I have a btn dash sm, which is button small, and this is going to be the edit button. Okay, and then let's copy that down, and then let's have a delete button, and let's see, this is going to have btn danger instead of dark, which will make it red. So let's check that out. Cool. Now we have a contact prop, so let's bring in prop types, and let's see, down at the bottom here, let's add ContactItem dot prop types, and we have contact, it's a single contact, and it's going to be an object, so PTOR, and save, and there we go. So we now have our contacts that are in our app level state, which are right now are hard coded, but we're sending it down through the provider, and we're able to access them and display them on the screen in these contact item components. All right, cool. So what I want to do in the next video is create a form to add a contact. Now remember, we're not dealing with the API at all yet. I just want to get the main functionality of creating, reading, updating, and deleting contacts just from memory, just from our hard-coded state. I want to do that before we start to implement our API, because remember, we need to do authentication and all that to be able to view specific user contacts and stuff. All right, so in the next video, we'll start to create our form to add a contact.